How many times can a child cry for help before anyone listens? Today, we're telling the heartbreaking story of Rebekah Baptiste, a 10-year-old girl who endured years of unimaginable abuse and neglect. Her teachers saw the signs, they reported it, but time and time again, the system failed her. Now she's gone. In this video, we'll uncover the devastating timeline, the shocking details of her death, and the catastrophic failures that led to this tragedy. But before we get into the horrifying details of this case, I want to talk about one way that I like to fuel my everyday, and that is with Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is the brand that brought you great tasting, high protein cereal that took you straight back to your childhood. But they don't just offer delicious cereals, they now have high protein treats as well. Magic Spoon is the perfect addition to a variety of diets. Their new treats are crunchy, crispy, and airy without that chewiness that you normally get with regular protein bars. Each of their treats are packed with 11 to 12 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and 1 to 2 net grams of carbs per serving, so you can always get the fuel you need on the go. Their cereals are also packed with 13 to 14 grams of protein, 0 sugar, and 4 to 5 net grams of carbs per serving. Magic Spoon's treats are great for when I'm on the go and I need a quick snack that still aligns with my goals. I have a very active job. I work out regularly and I want to be as strong as I can, so protein is a huge part of my diet. But I'm also super busy, so it can be hard to find time to fit that protein in. But with Magic Spoon, I can just grab a bar or start my day with their cereal, and I know I'm in for a high protein meal or snack that fits within my goals. So if you want to give Magic Spoon a try out for yourself, use my code RachelShannon or click the link in the description box below to try Magic Spoon treats or cereal today, and you can get $5 off. You can also find Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. Plus, Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee online. So if you don't like it for whatever reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. So again, click the link down below to head to magicspoon.com/RachelShannon or use the QR code shown on screen for $5 off. Thank you again so much to Magic Spoon for partnering with me on today's video. This is a case that hits really close to home for me because it happened in my home state, and where she lived and where she went to the hospital and where she went to school. They're all in a city near where I live and places that I've been to or been near. So when cases happen so close to home, you almost have this feeling of wishing like you could have done something about it. Like you wish you would have noticed her or met her and saw the signs and just, took her under your wing and said, I will lead you away from this abuse. Obviously, that's not realistic, and I've never met her or her family, but I just have a sickening feeling knowing that this happened so close to me. So when I heard about this case, I wanted to make sure I went ahead and covered it. And being from the state, I know the conditions where she was living and under which she was found. And let me just tell you, it really gives a better understanding of what she truly experienced. So with that being said, let's get into the case. Rebekah Baptiste was born to her mother, Sandy Hawkins, and her father, Richard Baptiste, in Phoenix, Arizona. At the time, 10-year-old Rebekah was a 5th grade student at Empower College Prep Academy in Phoenix. Those who knew Rebekah described her as someone who would always take care of others before herself. She was always concerned with the emotional well-being of those around her and was the first to try and comfort someone if they were feeling down. Of those Rebekah cared about, her little brothers were at the top of that list. She was the best big sister a little boy could ask for. She was always making sure they had eaten. She stuck up for them anytime it was needed and was always there to advocate on their behalf. Despite everything she had gone through in her short life, Rebekah was known to be happy, brave, and tenacious. From the very start, it seemed like Rebekah had a rough go at life. She was neglected from the day she was born, and even though she had multiple people in her life who did want to help, who tried to help, nothing was ever done. When Rebekah was still a baby by August 29, 2015, the Department of Child Services received a report regarding alleged neglect of Rebekah by her parents, as well as concerns for drug abuse. This first call was investigated, but the DCS agent deemed the claims unfounded and the case was closed. The following year, on May 6, 2016, another call came into DCS, this time with reports that Rebekah had a severe diaper rash and an ear infection, neither of which were being addressed. Once again, the investigator came to the home to check for signs of neglect and determined the claim to be unfounded. Another call was made in October of 2017 regarding a younger sibling of Rebekah, once again with claims of neglect. It was stated that the 10-month-old baby was left alone for several hours, but still, nothing was done because the claims were deemed unfounded. A fourth call to DCS was placed on March 14, 2019. This time, the caller reported neglect to Rebekah as well as her younger brothers. It was also alleged that the mother had been continuing to abuse drugs while pregnant with yet another child. A DCS investigator followed up on these claims, and this time the reports were substantiated. At this time, Rebekah and her two younger brothers were all removed from the home and placed with a foster family. After these children were removed, Rebekah's mother, Sandy, found herself pregnant once again, but this didn't stop her from continuing to abuse drugs. So by July of 2021, after the child was born, they were removed from their mother's care and placed into a foster home. After this child was removed, both Sandy and Richard relinquished their parental rights to this newborn child. However, by 2022, Richard filed with the courts to regain custody of Rebekah and her two little brothers. At that time, his request was granted, and he was given physical custody of those three children. By this point, Richard was no longer in a relationship with Rebekah's mother. He was now dating Anicia Woods. It was also around this time when Rebekah and her two brothers started school at Empower Prep. For the 3 years that followed, multiple teachers and staff who knew Rebekah said that they noticed a myriad of red flags that suggested that she was being physically and emotionally abused and neglected. She would often show up to school with unexplained bruises, black eyes. She was always starving, and she would even sometimes confide in her teachers that she felt unsafe at home. Some of the teachers called the Department of Child Services multiple times over those 3 years, yet it seemed that no meaningful action was taken. So now let's get into the timeline of those calls. About a year after Richard regained physical custody of Rebekah and her siblings by November 2nd, 2023, DCS was called to report that Anicia was physically abusing the children after one of them was found with a scratch on their neck. Agents followed up on this report, but the claim was deemed unfounded. By January and February of 2024, 2 more reports were made. One was to report that the children were being neglected, and the other was to report that one of the children had another scratch on their neck, supposedly caused by Anicia. Both calls were followed up on, but neither were deemed credible. Months passed before the next 2 reports came in, one in September of that year and another in October. In these reports, it was stated that another child had a scratch on their neck and a bump on their head, both caused by Anicia. The other call stated that Rebekah had marks on her hands and feet and that the children were disciplined through vigorous exercise. You'll be surprised to hear that both reports were eventually deemed unfounded. By 2025, the calls continued to roll in, and they were continuously determined to be unfounded. In January, a teacher claimed that Richard was forcing Rebekah to run outside barefoot as punishment and was being denied bathroom breaks and water. In April, a teacher reported that Rebekah showed up to school with a black eye and then missed multiple days of school after that. Given the history over the prior 3 years, Rebekah's teacher obviously made note of her absence and was very concerned that something bad had happened, which was preventing her from returning to school. Based on this report, they actually called the authorities to request a welfare check. When officers responded to the home, they were met with Anicia, who gave them several different reasons for the children's absence from school. She said that they had been coughing, that they had a sore throat, they were suffering with allergies, that the family had an upcoming funeral, and she said something about her car radiator needing to be fixed. After hearing all of these excuses, officers asked to see the children. After some hesitation, all 3 children did come to the door. According to officers, they appeared to be in good spirits, though the children each said that they were a little sick. In the report, the officer did note that Rebekah had a black eye. When he asked her what caused it, I'm assuming while she was still right in front of Anicia, Rebekah said that she was at a birthday party a few days earlier and was hit by a ball, which caused her to have a black eye. According to the officer, the color of the bruise appeared to line up with when Rebekah claims to have sustained it, so they weren't concerned. That report did make note of the prior allegations made by teachers, including them having to run outside barefoot as punishment, which, if you've ever been to Arizona or somewhere that gets as hot as here, you would know that that can be excruciating. They also were forced to hold planks as punishment. The report also stated that the family were, quote, quick to give all the right answers anytime something appeared out of the ordinary. Despite that information, despite the officers knowing that there were concerns regarding abuse, they wrote that there was no indication that the injury was intentional or the result of abuse. They also declined to take photos of the black eye. No further action was taken that day. A month later, in May, yet another call was made to DCS. This time, the caller reported that Rebekah and her siblings were being physically abused, specifically by Anicia. As a result, on May 19th, DCS attempted to visit the home in Phoenix, but they were told that the family had actually recently moved to Concho, a very rural, isolated town about 3.5 hours northeast of Phoenix. According to some reports, school staff said that at the time of this call, the children were actually still attending school in Phoenix because most of the people making these calls were teachers and staff at school, so that meant that they probably did still live in Phoenix. However, it didn't appear that DCS tried to follow up at school or at the Phoenix home. It appears that they just accepted that the family moved and were fine with not having any contact information to get a hold of them. I will note that the family did actually move to Concho, but the exact timing of when is a bit cloudy, though we will later see in police footage that they said that they moved about 3 weeks prior, which they said that in July. So in May, it does not appear that they moved yet, but they were saying that they did, probably so that they wouldn't get in trouble with DCS. I also tend to believe the staff at school saying that the children were still in school because, again, they were the ones making most of the calls to begin with. Regardless, though, I don't think that it would have mattered whether DCS followed up with the family or not. As we can see, for the prior 3 years, DCS was called numerous times, yet they never did anything to help. We can't imagine that anything would have gone differently this time. And as we see in so many cases, due to the inaction of the very people whose job it is to help children, another child is now dead. By July 27, 2025, 911 received a call from a woman thought to be Anicia Woods, reporting that 10-year-old Rebekah was just found unresponsive in a rural, isolated area near their home in Concho. In the call, she stated that Rebekah had run away from the home for the 3rd time that week, and when a neighbor found her in a wash, she was unresponsive and barely breathing. She was just gasping for air at that point. She said that by the time she and Richard got her back home, she was not breathing. So now they were in the car driving towards the hospital as Anicia was giving her mouth-to-mouth. In the call, she stated multiple times that Rebekah couldn't breathe on her own, so she was breathing for her. The dispatcher responded by telling her to pull over and wait for EMS to come to them, rather than continuing to drive around with an unresponsive child in the back seat. So they did just that, and before long, they were met with police officers.
they're giving her breath.
Is she breathing?
I'm breathing for her.
What do you mean?
I am putting my mouth around hers and breathing the air in her lungs. Yes.
Have you got her to the flat ground, solid ground?
Yeah, she's in the car.
Okay, I need you to put her on the ground.
On the rocks?
I need her on a flat ground so that you can administer CPR. Do you know how to administer CPR?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I hear the EMS coming.
Are you wanting to start CPR or are you waiting for EMS?
I'm waiting for them because I'm trying to get her breath.
The next interactions I'm about to share with you are captured on body cam footage, some of which I will include here. The full body cam footage does show her unresponsive body as well as efforts to resuscitate her. It's very jarring and disturbing footage, so I'm not going to include that footage, but I will tell you what happened from the moment they arrived. Of course, the moment officers arrived, they started giving CPR to little Rebekah, who is lying there on the hot asphalt, unmoving and unresponsive. Anicia and Richard tell officers that they live about 20 miles from where they presently were, and the reason they didn't call for help right away was because they didn't have good service at home. They said that they were in the car driving to the nearest hospital. The other officers questioned that statement, saying that the closest hospital was pretty far away, saying that they should have just called for help a lot sooner because there is an EMS station nearby, rather than just driving around with the child dying in the back seat. As one of the officers continued her life-saving efforts, another officer started questioning Anicia and Richard. They repeated the story that Rebekah had a history of running away. She ran away 3 times within a week and even jumped out of a window once to run away in Phoenix before they moved. Richard said that they got up that morning at around 10:30 a.m. to find that Rebekah had run away. So they immediately went outside to search for her, but their neighbors happened to find her first and notified the family. When they got to Rebekah, she was already unresponsive and barely breathing. When they first got to her, they brought her home, but as she continued to decline, they decided to put her in the car and rush her to the hospital. However, since they're new to the area, they didn't really know where to go. So instead of driving to the nearest EMT station or driving around until they found reception to call for help immediately, they headed towards the hospital located in Winslow, about an hour away from Concho.
And she's been running away for the last 3 or 4 weeks since we've been here.
Okay.
She ran away this morning. We went out and tried to find her, and our neighbor found her.
What time this morning?
We got up about 9:30, so it would have been close to 10:30.
So you guys saw her the night before?
Yeah.
Okay.
We all sleep in the same building.
Okay. And then, so you said she ran around that morning, and you guys were trying to find her?
This morning. Yeah, this morning. Yeah, this morning, yeah.
And you guys went out trying to find her, and then your neighbors found her?
Neighbor found her, yeah.
Okay, what were they doing down there? How'd they find her?
They were on quads.
They were on their quads, okay. And then they brought her to you?
Yeah.
At your house?
Yeah, well, it's technically was my great uncle's. He died recently, so we moved in there.
Okay.
So that's kind of how people know us up there.
Did she have any signs of life when she got brought to you?
She was almost basically like this. She was slightly responsive. She was still breathing on her own.
What do you explain to me what you mean responsive?
Like she was just breathing on her own.
Breathing on her own?
But that was about it. And then as we were driving this way, started seeing color change in her lips, and we were just hauling it.
All right, ma'am. So walk me through what happened today.
We were outside starting the morning. Before I can get waters in the bottles, she went running off again.
Okay, you saw her run off?
No, she disappears. We have them play in the yard, and she was supposed to go stand in the shade and go wait for me, because that's where we've been keeping her, to be outside, because she can't be trusted in the building, because she gets there. There's knives, there's weapons, there's everything.
Okay.
So I had her standing outside. I turned around to go grab waters for bottles, and she was gone.
Okay. Was she complaining of any pain, any sickness, anything like that today?
She's been complaining of a headache.
A headache?
Ever since she ran away the first day, she's been complaining of a headache.
Okay, this is frequently running away lately?
It's 3 times in less than 2 weeks.
She actually ran away a week before we moved out here. So
yeah, she actually jumped out the window. I was telling the other officer over there in the beige that she, just before we came up here, I didn't tell him about what he was bringing up, my dad brought up. She just ran away before we came up here. That one was super scary. She kicked out a screen and jumped out
How long ago was
the
that?
second store window.
It was
a week before we moved here.
It was the last week of June.
So it sounds like there's been a history of behavioral issues?
Yes, he was asking me if she had a history. She's had this long history of running away.
Okay.
A little while into the interview, another officer came up to notify the interviewing officer that they did get a small pulse in Rebekah. You'd think that this would be some relieving, happy, gleeful news for Richard and Anicia, but neither of them reacted to that statement one bit. Richard turned around with his hands still on his head as they had been this entire time, and Anicia just stood there for a minute before saying that she was worried about a bulge in her chest when she was giving CPR. Then she went right back to talking about how Rebekah had mental health and behavioral issues. Anicia said that Rebekah would run off to DCS and make up stories about them and her brothers. She said that there were no longer any active cases against them, but explained that for the past 3 years, Rebekah would give herself bruises and black eyes and would go to school and make up stories about abuse, all so that she could run away and not have to go back home.
We're not from this area.
They go to LCMC?
Most likely, unless they got a pulse.
Did they? Good.
I noticed when he had handed her to us that bulge in her chest, and that was making me afraid of. I didn't even think to start CPR. I just thought, let me keep breathing for her and let's just go.
Okay.
But I was telling that officer she has a long history of no physical health conditions, but it's mental health. For the last 3 years,
Has she been seeing a provider for her mental health?
We took her to Tarot. She was seeing a psychiatrist there that put her on
Tarot?
medications. Tarot. And that's where I was telling you. I had told him the first time that she ran away, she was taken over to Phoenix Children's Hospital and she ended up on a 7-day hold, a psychiatric hold. She has a long history with running to DCS and making up stories of her brothers.
So there has been DCS cases before?
Yeah, I
just got them back from the state.
Okay, who is your caseworker?
No, there is none now.
Well, who was?
There was multiple. The last one was transferred to a different division.
When was the last time you had contact with them?
The case was closed May
of this year?
May of last year.
Last year?
That's when we got our youngest back.
Okay.
And that's when the official case was closed. Her case was closed about a year before that.
Okay.
But she still, while his case was open, DCS kept having new cases open because Rebekah would go to school and had all these different allegations. And what was becoming alarming to not only her therapist but to the DCS workers was that she started having markings. Like she had bruises on her hands and her arms, and they took pictures. I thought Rebekah had told her that we had done it, and it was her way to try to get taken out. The first time she ran away, she told us that she didn't want to live here. She was just trying to leave. But we explained to her, everyone explained to her the dangers that come with this. She did. She ran away like 3 days after that, and then now this. But she's been complaining of headaches since the first day and basically dehydrated ever since the first day. I was telling him her mouth has been really bad since the first day.
After the interview with Richard and Anicia, officers found that his 2 other sons were sitting in the car by themselves. An officer went over and started asking the boys what happened, and they reported that Rebekah ran away and then came back home. He reiterated the story that Richard told, that the neighbors found Rebekah, brought her home, and she was already unresponsive at that point.
Hi guys, you guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? So what happened today?
Today she ran away.
She ran away?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then she came back home.
Okay. And when she came back home, how did that?
Huh?
So, did mom and dad bring her home?
No. Well, one of our neighbors from there, they saw them laying, they saw her brought her back home.
Oh, they brought her home? Okay.
Now, I described the footage and played it for you before actually giving you my thoughts because I wanted to see what you guys noticed about the footage before telling you what I think. So if you noticed anything particular, anything that stood out, go ahead and pause the video and let me know down below before continuing. But now I'm going to tell you what I noticed. I want to note that throughout this interview that the cop had with the two boys, both Richard and Anicia popped their heads into the car and appeared to make themselves busy. Richard peeked through the window at his son and then sort of walked away. Anicia came over and looked like she was like organizing some things in the car while looking at the boys as they spoke with the officer. To me, this indicates that both of them were checking on the boys and were kind of staying within earshot to check what they were telling officers. Maybe they were instructed on what to say, and Anicia and Richard wanted to make sure they did as they were told. I don't think it was a coincidence that they didn't bother to check on the boys or be near them when they were being interviewed or pretty much that entire time. They really only went to the boys when an officer went to go speak with them. Now, after speaking with everyone on scene, officers got their contact information and left. As that was happening, 10-year-old little Rebekah was transferred into an ambulance and rushed to the nearest hospital, which at that point was the Little Colorado Medical Center in Winslow. There, she was stabilized, but her injuries were too severe for what that hospital was equipped to handle, so she was then airlifted to the Phoenix Children's Hospital. When she arrived there, the full extent of what Rebekah had really gone through in the days, weeks, and months leading to her death was revealed. It was quickly found that Rebekah was severely dehydrated and malnourished and had suffered from a head injury resulting in subdural hematoma. Her brain bleed was so severe that when she arrived to the hospital, she was already considered brain dead. She was placed on life support where life-saving measures were attempted, but there was little hope for her survival. At first, based on what we know, it may have seemed like Rebekah may have actually run away. It was Arizona, the desert, and even in northern Arizona, it gets hot in the summer, reaching temperatures of over 100 degrees. And it's a dry heat, so if you're outside for too long without water, you will get dehydrated very quickly. As someone who lives in Arizona, literally walking from my car to work, it's like maybe a 2-minute walk, feels absolutely miserable in the summer. And if you don't have water on you at all times, you're gonna feel like garbage throughout the day. So based on that, it makes sense that she was severely dehydrated and maybe she died from the elements. But the other injuries on Rebekah's body told a much more disturbing story. She was found with bruising all over her body, marks that appeared to be from being whipped by a belt. She had burns all over that appeared to have been caused by cigarettes. As I stated, in addition to the dehydration, she was also severely malnourished to the point that it was clear that she hadn't had the proper nutrition for a prolonged period of time. So at this point, it was clear that Rebekah hadn't just run off and got so dehydrated that she died. She was clearly being abused, neglected, and tortured by her father and his girlfriend. Hospital staff believe that her head injury was likely the result of a blow to the head, a blow to the head that would prove too severe for her life to be saved. Tragically, after 3 days on life support, by July 30th, 10-year-old Rebekah Baptiste was pronounced dead at Phoenix Children's Hospital. From everything I've told you up to this point, it's clear that Rebekah had spent her final years being abused and neglected. She confided in her teachers who saw the bruises and saw how hungry she was and did what they could to get her out of that home. Yet any time the child protection agencies were notified, nothing was done. So the family eventually moved up north out of the city and into a yurt-style home with no electricity, located in the middle of the woods, 8 miles from the nearest paved road and with very little neighbors around. After years of others noticing her suffering, she was pulled from school and taken to a place where no one would see her again. There, the abuse likely continued until somehow she was hit in the head hard enough to cause her to go unconscious. Then Richard and Anicia seemingly came up with this whole story about how she ran away and passed out in a wash to make it look like she brought this upon herself.
For the first time, we're getting a bird's eye view of the yurt where Rebekah Baptiste was living in rural Apache County, and hearing from the neighbors in this remote area.
To this day, I think about Rebekah. Never got to meet the little girl. I mean, she's 10 years old. How can you... I can't fathom what she was going through.
Toys can still be spotted at the Baptiste property, which can only be reached by driving down winding dirt roads. But the investigation into what happened to 10-year-old Rebekah Baptiste started here at this intersection in Holbrook.
And she's been running away for the last 3 or 4 weeks since we've been here. She ran away this morning.
Rebekah's dad, Richard Baptiste, and his girlfriend, Anicia Woods, caught on body camera prior to their arrest and Rebekah's death. Officers meeting the family, finding the young girl severely injured.
And your neighbors found her?
Neighbor found her, yeah.
Okay, what were they doing down there? How'd they find her?
They were on quads.
They were on their quads?
And it's not nice terrain. There's a lot of cactus, a lot of brush, trees, and you know, it's pure sand out here.
But investigators knew better than that. She had clear signs of abuse on her body, and the head injury was not indicative of a fall. It was not like she could have just run off, got really dehydrated and dizzy, and passed out and hit her head. Her head injury was indicative of multiple blows to the head, so it did not happen from a fall. So shortly after Rebekah's death, both 32-year-old Richard Baptiste and 29-year-old Anicia Woods were arrested and charged with murder and child abuse. Hello, Editing Rachel here. After recording this episode, and now that I'm editing it, more information from the neighbors of Rebekah and her family have come out. They've actually sat down with media outlets to talk about what they know about Rebekah and how often she was running away and what they know about the day that she allegedly ran away. I'm going to play videos from those news clips now so you can hear directly from them what they have to say.
Off Highway 180 in northeast Arizona. River Meadows Ranch spans across a remote and isolated 28,000 acres. After 10 years and 12 reports made to the Department of Child Safety, it's where the Baptiste family moved their 3 children and where neighbors saw 10-year-old Rebekah alive for the last time.
You don't do this. There's too many wild animals out here, you know, that will kill you. They will hurt you.
Amongst the barren desert is a tight-knit community. We sat down with Mary Stanley, who headed a search party for Rebekah the first 2 times she ran away.
Because I knew this was the second time. I says, if you feel you need to get away, don't run away out here. I says, anyway, but that's when I offered to come pick her up.
But that was the last time Mary ever saw Rebekah.
Quiet, scared, tiny.
Mary's son Andrew found Rebekah that day on his quad and brought her home, but something seemed off.
That little girl just needed, he said, I had no water with me. He says, she climbed right up on the quad with me like she knew me. And he says, of course, I took her home. And they rushed her in the house at the time. He says, it just didn't seem right. They didn't give her no water or nothing.
3 weeks later, Rebekah died after being flown to Phoenix Children's Hospital. Her injuries so gruesome with bruises from head to toe, doctors describing what the little girl endured as torture. In body camera video, Richard Baptiste and Anicia Woods tell officers a neighbor on a quad found Rebekah unresponsive that day. But for those that live in River Meadows Ranch, that was not the truth. Instead, Rebekah hadn't been seen by neighbors for weeks.
I didn't hear that until the district attorney called my son. Nobody picked her up on a quad the 3rd time. Nobody. There was no call out for search. There was no call out for nothing.
Following Richard Baptiste's arrest, he admitted the young girl was looking for help the time she ran away. Richard stating he didn't deserve to be a parent and at times had hit Rebekah too hard.
If I'd even thought, I'd have called the sheriff. And right now, to be honest, if I could get my hands on them, both of them, they wouldn't walk off that property. They really wouldn't.
At this point, no further information regarding what exactly they believe the two did to Rebekah has been released, but the details of the DCS timeline and their lack of action has absolutely outraged everyone who knew and loved Rebekah, especially her teachers and other school staff. They came out to talk about just how many times they contacted DCS only for their concerns to be ignored. And what I told you up to this point was reported by DCS. Either way, after all of this came out, DCS did release a statement in response to the school's allegations that they didn't follow up on their concerns. DCS stated that they only received 5 calls from the school and that only one of them actually met the criteria for them to follow up. But as I was stating all throughout this video, they did follow up on multiple of the reports. So all throughout this video, anytime that you heard of a call where they said, that the call was made and the claims were unsubstantiated, that probably means that they didn't feel that they met the criteria for them to actually follow up. And the few times they did follow up, they did meet the criteria, but they still didn't think that it warranted any action. But at the same time, the school said that they did call multiple other times and were told that someone would follow up, so they said that they called more than those 5 times. So to me, I think it's possible that if the school did call as many times as they say, which I do tend to believe, if an agent answered and felt that the claims weren't going to meet the criteria, there's a possibility that the call just wasn't documented properly. Because the school staff said that they did document every time they called. So they either lied and fabricated their own documentation, or more likely, in my opinion, some of the reports fell through the cracks because they weren't documented properly. Either way, I do want to read some of DCS's statement to you because it's actually quite rare that the agency will respond to circumstances like this one, so we don't often get to hear what they have to say. In part, the Arizona DCS stated, quote, "It is with a heavy heart that we acknowledge the death of Rebekah Baptiste, a child who is known to the department. Anytime a child in our community is harmed, it deeply affects us all, especially when we know the family. Our dedicated staff work tirelessly to ensure the safety of all children, but tragically, those who intend to harm children can sometimes evade even the most robust systems designed to protect them. In response to this incident, the department is actively collaborating with law enforcement in a joint investigation to ensure that the people responsible for this heinous act are brought to justice. The department would like to correct some of the information made public by other sources related to the death of Rebekah Baptiste. According to department records, Empower School called the hotline 5 times in the past year, and 1 time the allegation met the statutory report criteria. The other 4 times the department was not able to investigate the allegations because they did not meet the statutory threshold for abuse or neglect. We do not have any records that a relative called the hotline after 2019 to allege abuse or neglect of Rebekah or her siblings. We take every call to our hotline seriously, but we only have the authority to initiate an investigation if the call meets the statutory report criteria. Rebekah deserved love, safety, and a chance to thrive. There are no words that will make sense of the pain she endured or her life that was tragically cut short. Her loss is a sorrow we carry deeply, a reminder of the work that we must never stop doing. We know this loss is felt most deeply by her school community that saw Rebekah most often. In honoring her memory, the department will strive to educate our schools to better understand what meets the report criteria so that when they do make a call to the hotline, we can take appropriate action. Here are the basic criteria. The victim is currently under the age of 18. The victim has been physically, emotionally, sexually abused, neglected, abandoned, or exploited by a parent, guardian, custodian, or adult member of the victim's household. Victim is a resident or present in Arizona, and the identity or current location of the child victim's family, or the person suspected of abuse or neglect is known or can be reasonably ascertained. Now, I do think that anyone working with children should be better trained on what to look for and when to make a call. But as someone who works with children and has called DCS, I think that every call we heard about in this video absolutely meets those standards. A child is showing signs of being starved at home. A child shows up with bruises or scratches. A child is confiding in their teacher that she's afraid to go home. I don't understand how that doesn't meet this criteria. But then we have that last one where they have to be able to identify the location of the child. This obviously makes sense that you need to know where the child is, but it also makes sense for why no one bothered to follow up on that last DCS call, which was made 2 months before her death. But this criteria, at least how they handled it, does not sit right with me. Because you're telling me that after the family got that DCS call when they moved away to a remote area in northern Arizona, suddenly, because they were able to hide, that means that the allegations no longer meet the criteria. That is literally encouraging families to leave the city or state and move somewhere that no one can find them. Because clearly if they do that, then no one will be looking into their case anymore. I know that they said they moved to Concho and they weren't really able to get into contact with them right away, and the criteria states that they need to be able to find them. But I think that whoever followed up on this call took that too literally, because they didn't bother to check if they were actually still in Arizona or if they were actually still going to school. So it seems to me like they know this criteria. Oh, we can't really identify where they are because they moved to Concho, so I guess we're not going to try, instead of actually looking to see if they moved. Because if they had, they would have known that they didn't actually move and they actually would have been able to locate Rebekah. So I understand why this criteria is there, but I think that it can be misused very, very easily, as we saw in this case. But either way, this is where we're at. Rebekah is dead after suffering for years of abuse and torture. She obviously didn't deserve any of it. In fact, she did deserve to be saved from it, but the people responsible for doing just that ignored her time and time again. As of right now, both Richard and Anicia are sitting in jail on a $1 million bond. Because this is such a recent case, we don't know when the trial will take place, but of course, I will keep you all updated as more information on this case comes out. I just hope that both of these sick monsters get what they deserve and that everyone in jail knows exactly what they did to their innocent, helpless child. And I just hope that Rebekah's little brothers are somewhere safe, somewhere loving, and that they can make it through the rest of their lives free from abuse, and I hope that they can heal from everything they've gone through. But that is where I'm going to end today's video, and now I want to hear from you all. What do you think really happened? What do you think of the police body cam footage? And do you think there will be a trial? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.